Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome to today's program. Tell you what, friends, we're so happy that spring is here because a lot of us are going out now. We're shooting in IPSC. The cowboy matches are just going out and shooting for fun. We do have a great show for you. We're very happy to have three of the finest shooters in the entire country on today's show. I know you're really going to enjoy that. So let's get another shooting show underway. Let's take our .44 Magnum. And you know, friends, if you think that one .44 Magnum's not going to be enough, heck, just try two of them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here with a pretty esteemed bunch of shooters here today. This young man on my left is none other than Jerry Barnhart, and we are officially today Team Colt. Is that correct, Jerry?
That's correct.
And of course, the young man in the middle here is Jerry Mitchellick, also known as the fastest revolver shooter in the world. And down here in the red shirt, of course, Jim Clark Jr., whom you've seen on our program a number of times. And they're out practicing today for, in fact, tell me what y'all are doing, Jerry.
We're practicing for the Sportsman's Team Challenge. It's going to be the first week of April this year.
Where's it going to be?
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
All right, this is a spectator event, right?
Yes, it is.
Now, some of our viewers, we have a lot of people in Florida that would like to come out. So where's this going to be held?
We're
in Fort Lauderdale.
Park. Markham Park.
Markham Park.
Yeah.
What are the hours it's going to be held, you know?
We usually start shooting, about 8 o'clock?
Probably 8 o'clock in the morning.
And it runs till around 5, I'd say, in the afternoon, something like that.
Well, you know, that's really good because shooting, we're seeing more things along the spectator sport line. And it's great to go out and see, well, some of the best shooters in the country, in fact. I mean, there's going to be some more besides y'all there, right? Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be probably about 9 to 11 professional teams. Altogether, there's supposed to be about 90 teams.
90 teams.
90 teams.
Right. 3-man teams, so it's a lot of people.
Well, that's right, and you're going to see some of, besides the professional shooters, which certainly all of you qualify in the first rank of professionals, but you're also going to have some people that are weekend shooters out there also. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, of course, Jerry is primarily known as an IPSC shooter. Of course, he has been a champion.
Action shooter.
Action shooter, okay. And a champion a whole lot of times, in fact. And, of course, all three of our shooters today have all held national titles and are among the three finest shooters, certainly, that I'm aware of in the pro ranks. So, well, gentlemen, you have some 22 rifles here. Now, explain a little bit about what's happening, please.
Go ahead, Jerry. Well, what I do here, I shoot the 45 and the 60-yard bank. I have 20 targets to knock down. Then I start reloading my magazines, and Jerry starts at the 75-yard line. He has 10 targets. And Jim shoots the 90-yard line, 10 targets.
Now, what guns are you going to be using in this discipline? All 22? Or
22 rifles.
22
Yeah,
rifles?
they're all Ruger 22 rifles. The 1022.
Well, now, what are the other stages that you'll be shooting in a match like this? Now, you have some handgun, don't you?
Yeah,
we have some pure handgun matches and then some mixed handgun matches. What they have for a combo is 1 rifle and 2 pistols.
Okay.
So, and then a pure rifle match here and a pure pistol match.
Well, we're going to watch them do some shooting with these, and of course these are Clark Custom 22s. Of course, we're down here on the new Clark Range here in Halton, Louisiana, and this is really a great facility. And you anticipate a grand opening here in the next few weeks, is that correct, Jim? And we're going to come out and do a feature on their opening. They have a fabulous facility here in northwest Louisiana. So we're going to watch, and I think that you're going to enjoy this. We're going to watch them shoot. We're going to watch some targets fall.
All right, got 1 minute 45 seconds. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Okay, shooters ready. Stand by. Go!
A minute and 8 seconds. All right.
Looking now at the bonus points is a 1-inch hole.
Where are we at?
It has to be hit.
I'm on altitude at 55.
All right, I'm gonna go short line.
It's a little extra 55 yard, 1-inch hole across. There it is.
28 seconds.
Well, there's no more behind you.
Oh, is that right?
One left in the middle out there.
What it is?
55.
18.
Okay, so you see
Come on, let's get 'em.
The short bank? That's how big a target you have. That makes
All right.
Because
9 seconds.
That's all they have. He has a target about this big Ford has, so if he just hits it
Them
first,
small ones are getting harder and harder to hit.
he's got a target.
Well, friends, I tell you what, this is certainly impressive. And they're moving up. You call this a combo, Jerry, is that right? Is it?
Yep.
You call this a combo?
It's a combo event.
Now, tell us what you're going to do here, if you would.
What we end up with is all of us start out. Jerry's going to shoot he's going to start out the green apertures out there at 80. And he's going to work his way in. Well, my job is to knock out all the 4-inchers at the 45, the 50, and the 60-yard line, and then come back in and pick up whatever's left. Jim starts, and he's shooting all the targets at the 20-yard line all the way across there, and then he's going to keep us hot. He's going to basically load all the magazines for us, so we can just keep shooting.
And of course, what guns are you using on this stage? You're shooting a...
This is a Smith 41. Jim's shooting one of the new Colt 22 pistols.
Yeah.
And Jerry's using this rifle.
A rifle for those aperture shots at 80 yards.
Like to have a tripod, but they wouldn't let me use one.
What's your time limit on this?
145.
We have 1 minute 45.
Same thing.
Yep.
All right, well, let's see what it looks like.
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Stand by. Go.
Got me one loaded, Jim? Clear.
40.
This is a pistol event. It'll be a tag team type event. Jerry Barnhart will take off from the starting position. He will start the clock himself and run about 20 yards up. He'll be shooting a 22 long rifle pistol, and he'll have 24 targets at 20 and 25 yards. He'll run back, tag. Jerry Micklick will run. He shoots the action event. He'll have 12 targets at variation ranges there, just all over the place. He'll run back. I'll tag out, and I have 12 4-inch squares at 25 and 35 yards. And we have 1 minute 35 seconds to shoot the course.
What guns you going to be using on this now?
Center fire guns on the last 2 stations.
Okay, and they're your own customized, what, 38?
Right, they'll be custom guns. Jerry will be shooting a 38 Super, and I'll be shooting a 40 Smith & Wesson. This is one of the combo targets we'll be shooting in Fort Lauderdale. It's quite an elaborate setup. They want to hide the main scoring target where you have to knock out a 4-inch, and you'll see it uncovers as you knock it out. And it's quite an elaborate scoring system. You only get 1 point for the big target. For the smaller targets are worth quite a bit more points, and you have to fight for them. Same thing all the way down. You won't uncover until you knock down the big target. Knock down the little target, the flag will show. It's your main point target. A rack like this costs about $1,200.
That's just to be able to practice.
That's just to practice. All right, your 4-inch target will fall, and you can watch as the 4-inch target falls, it hits a lever, which drops the clapper from in front of the small target. Then you can shoot the small target, which will hit another lever and lock the flag out where the wind can't blow it shut.
1.5 by 1.5 inches wide, and the star is about tip to tip is about 2.5 inches, and you have to shoot through it, and knock it over.
And these are 90-yard targets, is that right?
90 yards, yeah.
Now the others are a little bigger, of course, but still. But these are the ones that really give people problems, is this diamond and star. And their degree of difficulty is way up. Friends, these are the 1-inch holes, and this is what I believe 40.
The bonus target.
Bonus part.
This is 55 yards,
55 yards,
and they also have one at 40 yards.
and of course the backside of the one at 40 yards. Tremendous degree of difficulty.
More and more often, women are faced with protecting themselves and their homes. But another way of protection is through information. And we at the Shootin' Show believe that the new American magazine has the best information that you can possibly get.
You can get the New American by calling 1-800-727-TRUE-TRUE. And those numbers, of course, are 1-800-727-8783. The New American, $22 for a 6-month subscription. It comes twice a month. Friends, you need this magazine if you want to know what's going on. And in times like this, we need both of these. We need our guns, and we darn sure need our information. Friends, you can communicate with the Shootin' Show on CompuServe. Now, our number is 735-42-3024. Again, 735-42-3024. And to join our Shootin' Show Gun Club, call us at 1-800-895-7916. We take Visa, MasterCard, check, money order, whatever you got. Join today, friends. We need to reach as many people as we can.
What we have here, Johnny, is a Clark Custom 38 Super. Of course, it's on a Colt frame and slide. It has a hybrid compensator and a rail mount, red buff scope mount. It also has the checkered front strap and back strap with a magazine well enlarged, big thumb release for the magazine, and it's tricked up pretty much to the maximum. It's a real good shooter. It has the Clark version of the Jowl slide guide to make it a lot more accurate. It's a good one.
This is Colt's 22 that basically replacing the Woodsman. It's a 10-shot, heavy-barreled 22 semi-auto. The ones coming out of the factory right now, they have a standard version and a target version. They all have iron sights on them. This particular gun's been modified by Clark's. They've taken one of their bull barrels that they use on their rifles with the same chamber in it. And with it tricked out like this, we're probably getting at least a minute angle out of it. It'll shoot at least an inch at 50 yards. So we're getting some pretty good accuracy out of this thing.
What about your magazine well there, Jerry?
The mag well is opened up a little bit on this one. What kind of changes this from some of the autos is your magazine release is on the opposite side, it's on the injection port side. So you're taking your finger out of the trigger guard to drop the mags out of it. Everything else is pretty much standard on it. It's got a polymer bottom on it too that kind of makes it a little different than some of the other guns out there right now. So it makes it a little more lightweight too.
Well, gentlemen, we certainly appreciate you being with our shooting show audience today, and we certainly wish you a lot of luck at the match here.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
Friends, the Clarks were nice enough to invite us out to tape the practice session for this team challenge match. And for those of you who are interested in Clark Custom Guns or any of their products or services, they have a new phone number. They're in Houghton, Louisiana now. That number is area 318-949-9884. Again, area 318-949-9884 for Clark Custom Guns.
This is the famous Thunder 5 revolver shooting the .45 Colt cartridge, also the .410 shotgun shell. It's also available in .45-70 and includes some caliber inserts that are optional. And let's get that snake. For information on the Thunder 5, call 1-800-654-0797. Again, that's 1-800-654-0797.
Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying our program. I tell you what, Judge, watching Jerry Barnhart, Jerry Mitchell, and Jim Clark Jr., I mean, it's fantastic speed. I've never seen anybody shoot that fast, I don't think.
Well, it kind of gets you discouraged about your own shooting.
Yeah.
Because they are experts.
I mean. Well, sir, I know you have some information for us this week. It's going to be very important.
Well, we have the NRA-ILA Fax Network, as usual, comes in every weekend. And in this particular case, they were anticipating the hearings. Actually, they talked about the first hearing, which was Friday, of the House Committee on the Constitution, Subcommittee on Crime, and it was good. I recorded it. I didn't have quite long enough tape to record it all. I missed the last part.
But essentially, this was one for our side, right?
Oh, you better believe it was on our side.
It's time we had one for our side in Washington.
Bill McCollum, the Republican from Florida, was the chairman of the committee, and the ranking minority member was Representative Sherman from New York, and he was really disgruntled. Believe me, he was disgruntled. He said all of this was a smokescreen for the NRA, that the NRA had gotten active in the last political campaign, and that it was now payback time.
Well, I'm just glad they're just blaming just the NRA, because it was a lot of the rest of us out here.
Well, there were some of the rest of us out here, too. They had 3 panels that talked. The first 2 panels were heavy pro-gun. The second panel was especially interesting because it was Professor Wright and another academician. I'm not sure exactly who it was right now. I'd have to think about that. But they were good. They had facts. They had statistics. And boy, did those facts and statistics upset Representative Sherman. He quizzed him heavily. I don't think he got anywhere with it. The last panel was a pro-gun control panel, but by that time everybody had left. I noticed, however, that the paper did carry the information that the pro-gun control panel had raised.
Well, you know, Representative Schumer is a good example of those people out there who cannot be reasoned with. This man is beyond reason. Don't you agree?
Any question about that? Any
I
question
mean, he's
about
in a class with Sarah Brady and all, and that's what our people have to realize. There's one way to deal with these people like Schumer and Dianne Feinstein and people like that. There's only one way to deal with them. That is take them out of office. Vote them out.
Yeah, vote them out.
You can't
Vote
reason
'em
with
out.
them. They cannot
The
be
trouble
reasoned.
is Feinstein's just been reelected now for 6 years. I understand that Sherman is just literally undefeatable in his particular district, but he's a voice in the wilderness.
Well, we have to keep them outnumbered. That's what we have
And
to
you've
do.
got to have him outnumbered. You must have him outnumbered because
they're not
as long
going
as,
away.
if the Democrats ever regain control of Congress, you may rest assured that Sherman will be the chairman of that committee, and it will be a committee that is hard on gun owners. In any event, this was a real fine meeting. There was a Democrat from North Carolina named Watt. That was he noted a Democrat rebutted Sherman's remarks, saying that people that own firearms were not extremists, but rather average law-abiding citizens. Congressman Barr suggested that Sherman open his eyes
Well,
and realize what was actually the case. It was good hearing. It was an excellent hearing. I just
Well,
wish
they
I had
had
been able to
people-
record all of it.
they had people testifying that actually used firearms in defense of their own life,
Yes, they did.
and just telling the truth.
It kind of tickled me. The first lady that testified was talking about chambering a round in an AR-15 and how that's such a distinctive sound that was, and that sent the people who were down on the lower floor of a house scurrying and left.
People that had broken in her home, I believe
Yes.
that's correct, yes.
But she was talking about what a distinctive sound it was. Believe me, Johnny, in the silences of the night, that's also a very distinctive
Yes.
sound. A very distinctive sound. And I have
Absolutely.
heard it. I have heard it. And a look at the states, we have California, Colorado, Massachusetts, Kansas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Virginia. We're winning victories on almost all of them. In Kansas, the Senate defeated an NRA right to carry bill, but the House has still got one working, so maybe. Anyhow, the thing that upset me, and I mentioned it last week, was an editorial in the Shreveport Journal page about how the Brady bill was really working, and talked about how 45,000 criminals had been prevented from getting guns. 45,000, but yet in prosecutions, out of these so-called 45,000 criminals, we've only had 4 prosecutions. It's illegal for a criminal to try to buy a gun and fill out that form that you are
Have been the whole time, yes.
that you're so familiar with. And the paper pointed out that that was between 2 and 3% of the total number of gun sales, total handgun sales. Well, you know, that's interesting because I
Talking
worked
about the
backwards.
45,000, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I worked backwards from that. If that was 3%, then the total gun sales were 1.5 million.
Handguns.
And that meant 1.5 million people had background checks. The average cost on them had to be at least a couple of hours, and that then would have been 3 million plus hours, man hours, and of course, those 1.5 million people had to pay an average of $10 apiece to have that background check
Yes.
run. So that's another $15 million, and anybody that thinks $15 million and 750,000 man-hours of time
Per,
is worth 4 prosecutions has got to be blind. That's not an efficient use of manpower. All those 750,000 hours of police work in the office, off the street where they need to be.
per prosecution. We figured 750,000 man-hours per prosecution. Is that right? It's fantastic.
Well, let's see. Is that the way it works out?
I
That was
think- I
$1.5 million
think so.
times 3.
3 million
times-
hours divided by
times-
4.
Right, divided by 4. That's
750,000 man-hours per prosecution on the Brady bill. It's fantastic.
Of course, the truth of the matter is, and this has come out in some pro-gun circles, most of those 45,000 that were denied because of mistaken identity, because of similarity of names, because of minor things like maybe an unpaid parking ticket. That's really bad. We have to spend that much time, that much effort trying to track down parking violators, but you have to expect the 3 organizations that ran that survey, which were Handgun Control Incorporated and
International Association of Police Chiefs, which is a very
International
liberal.
Association of Police. Well, now they probably thought that was an efficient use of hours.
Well-
It built their dynasties, their
And
little bureaucracies.
Well, I think we can safely say that the International Association of Police Chiefs does not represent the rank and file law enforcement members across this country, don't you?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Survey after survey have been taken of those. I think that Professor Watt, he's a professor of sociology at Tulane University, and while I'm not a real strong believer in sociology, his research really conclusively showed. Of course, he was counting Gary Kleck's research, but he was supporting it. And both Kleck and Watt got grants from the Carter administration to make these surveys in an effort to prove that there was a relationship between crime and the number of guns on the street. And as they got into it and began a scholarly research on it, they came to exactly the opposite conclusion. Now remember, these were people who initially believed that there was a relationship between the number of guns on the street and crime, and their research showed to them that it was not. They were true academarians in that they were willing to let facts change their opinions as opposed to simply trying to do research that came up with an opinion. And incidentally, that's what Sherman accused them of doing, of having an opinion first and then doctoring statistics to support it. And nobody on that committee pointed this out, that these people started off as gun control advocates, and they ended up fortified by facts, changing their minds and coming to the conclusion that the proliferation of guns on the street had nothing at all to do with crime, that in fact there were about 2.5 million crimes prevented every year by the use of firearms, mostly without firing. So that just upset Sherman a lot like nobody's
sure.
business. It really did.
Well, these were reasonable people. And, friends, of course, we reach in a lot of these areas around the country where people have not been exposed to guns. They don't understand what this is all about, and they watch our program and see, once we state our case as why we enjoy having firearms and why we need them for the security of our homes, most people understand what this is about. Most reasonable people, most intellectual people who had no opinion before or even were on the other side, when you present them with the facts, they're going to come with us. You know, friends, this box of Corbin ammunition and this Wesson 41 Magnum are in fact a perfect match for each other. But it doesn't matter whatever gun you may have, like this SKS or a hunting rifle or a 38 Special or a 9mm, makes no difference, because Corbin is absolutely the best factory ammunition that money can buy, period. And also, friends, when you see a box of Corbin on the shelf or you give them a call, realize that Corbin is helping keep the shooting show on the air. They've been one of our most dedicated sponsors. You cannot find finer people in the entire shooting industry. For information on Corbin ammunition, call them 1-800-626-7266. Again, 1-800-626-7266. Tell them you saw it on the Shooting Show. Hello, friends. I'm out here practicing for one of the most fun hunting sports that you can imagine. You can use a variety of action types. You have access to year-round hunting, some cases no limits, and you get to use a variety of guns. Well, you know what I'm talking about is the sport of varmint hunting. And we need to introduce you folks to varmint hunting. A lot of us have been doing it for years and didn't know what to call it, but we especially need to introduce you to the Varmint Hunter magazine. You know, friends, varmint hunting is one of the fastest growing shooting sports in the world. In fact, the Varmint Hunters Association, they have members in all 50 states and 19 foreign countries. Now, their magazine focuses on varmint hunting and super accurate reloading and shooting techniques. Plus, there's a lot of humor, a lot of interesting cartoons and humorous articles in the magazine. Incidentally, the magazine is large, it's very high quality, and something I think you're really going to enjoy reading, and it's published quarterly. It's only $24 for an associate membership in the Varmint Hunters Association. And look, for information, now you ought to do this. If you're a dedicated shooter, this is something I think you're really going to enjoy. For information on the Varmint Hunter magazine and the Varmint Hunters Association, call them at 1-800-528-4868. Again, 1-800-528-4868. Be sure and tell them you saw it on the Shooting Show.
And our young people are on our side. Sarah Brady delivered a speech at the University of Oklahoma at Norman.
Okay.
And she was heckled, booed, and shouted down by the students there. I'm sure that was a great blow to her ego and to her theories. But
well, good for them.
That's absolutely wonderful, wonderful, because she needs to get it in her head that she is not on the right side of this issue. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how to get it there other than something like that. Of course, I'm against heckling and booing people when they're trying to deliver a talk. But I guess that Sarah Brady's talks were so one-sided and so biased. Oh, yeah, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. Absolutely not.
Well, let me tell you something briefly.
It emphasizes, Johnny, it emphasizes what we've got to do and what we've emphasized every week on this program, and that is, it is never an ending fight. There is no compromise that satisfies them. All they're after is to totally eliminate firearms of all kinds, types, and description, and disarm the American public. And again, in Sarah Brady's own words, we will never be able to accomplish our dream of a socialist America until we totally disarm all of those who would never agree. A lot of us are among those who would never agree.
Would never agree, yes. Well, one of our viewers I talked to here recently was very upset about all the fingerprinting and all the forms, pictures, such as on the new FFL series. You know, you have to have your fingerprints cleared with the FBI, you have to have a picture, you have to have all these permissions from your local law enforcement people. And he suggested this. He said, you know, these folks in the government, such as your officers who work on these special teams with ATF and some of these other things, said, well, if they know who we are, know where we live, know what our names are, who we are in fact, he said, why don't we as gun owners have a list of all of them?
Know who they are. Yeah.
Where they live. You know, just what's the deal? Let's have their fingerprints. You know, let's have it open for fire. I mean, just an idea. And I thought, you know, that had some merit. I was
Well,
impressed.
when I got my concealed weapons permit, Johnny, I didn't mind being fingerprinted. My fingerprints have been on record since I went in the United States Navy.
Yeah, sure.
Too long ago. And so they can have my fingerprints. I've already got them. But I can understand how some people be reluctant to be fingerprinted because it's none of the government's damn business. We've got too much government. I remember somebody saying once that isn't it lucky we don't have as much government as we pay for. But the truth of the matter is we're paying too much and we have too much government. And that is what the lesson of the elections in November were, that we want a smaller bureaucracy, we want a smaller federal government. And I've got a suggestion to Newt Greenwich. I've got a suggestion to Bob Dole. Cut off the funding of ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They're the most rogue agency in the country. And then we won't have to have the motto of Remember Waco, because that's what happened at Waco, where a military-style assault was carried on against a religious group. They called them a cult. So what? I rather imagine that almost 2,000 years ago that Christ and his disciples were called a cult too. Freedom of religion means they've got a right to worship as they see fit and to study the Bible as they see fit. And those people have been down there at Waco for years and hadn't bothered anybody. And why the government suddenly decided to pick on them is more than I can understand.
Well, I personally think that it was it was a show of force to show what. And incidentally, have you? I understand that Janet Reno has some plans for a new 2,500 federal military SWAT team, 2,500 man federal SWAT team. Now, this is something that's come out in the past week or so I've heard about, and I don't know what the details of that are on that, but I think it's something we really need to be concerned about.
Well, I think it's something we need to be concerned about too, Johnny, and I think that that we can.
Her personal police force.
That's exactly what it would be.
Friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska, the zip code 68902, their phone number, area 402-463-4589, MasterCard or Visa for subscriptions only. Now call them at 1-800-345-6923.
Friends, we're going to look at some semi-automatic pistols today. The good folks at Britton's have loaned me a Clark custom gun that they happen to have in their inventory right now, and this is in .38 Super. Well, we have 5 pistol cartridges we're going to briefly look at because we get a lot of correspondence and people have all sorts of ideas of what the best defensive type cartridge. And of course we're hearing from a lot of women, we hear from all kinds of people on what they should have, and a lot of people are buying semi-automatic handguns, and many times they can't get instruction from whoever they buy the gun from, and this is something that we really are trying to deal with here on the program. Better means of getting instruction when people go and buy firearms. Well, we have the five most common cartridges, let's put it like that. We have, from looking at your picture on the screen, we have a 9mm on your left, next to it a .38 Super, next to that a 40 Smith & Wesson, and then we have a full-size 10mm, and then over on your right we have a 45 ACP. Now then, a lot of semi-automatic pistols that are out there that are not or haven't been made in the last, I'm going to say the last 15 or so years. I think we can go back about 15 years, and many times the gun industry has been so slow to adapt to what the needs of the public have been or are. And one of the examples of that is all semi-automatic pistols made up until probably the mid-1970s or so even were made to feed only full metal jacket military type ammunition. Well, friends, the only thing that full metal jacket ammunition is good for, one, it's some of them shoot real well as target rounds, but what they do, they have very low shocking power. They're not good to hunt with, and they're certainly not good. They tend to over-penetrate in a self-defense situation.
there are incidences where bullets where police officers have been shooting at a felon have actually injured or even killed their partner because you had a police officer on the back side of this individual where the full metal jacket bullet literally zipped right on through the perpetrator and injured a police officer standing in the back. And also, if you've bought a semi-automatic handgun, please don't depend on the full metal jacket type ammunition for defense inside your home. If you live in an apartment or you live in a mobile home, if you had to shoot your gun inside your house, many times a full metal jacket type bullet will go through several walls and you could injure someone and just have a terrible consequence to the shooting. So that's one advantage. Some of the anti-gun types think of the evil hollow point. Well, that's silly. It's ridiculous, because hollow points, literally what they do is they transfer their energy better than a full metal jacket or a hard cast bullet. Now, there are some applications where penetration is desired, such as a hunting bullet. And we have some hunting ammunition we're going to be looking at on another program that I think is really some good developments have come about for the handgun hunter. But as far as self-defense, and this is where it gets confusing. Yes, there's a lot of confusing stuff. Some of the older guns, the 1911s, the Browning high powers that were semi-automatic, simply will not feed hollow point ammunition. Some of the earlier Smith & Wesson semi-automatics back in the 60s and early 70s, they simply just were not reliable with with hollow point ammunition. So this is where your local gunsmith, and those of you that have older guns like that, you need to get to know your local gunsmith and find out what he can do to make your semi-automatic reliable. You know, as you've often heard me say on the program, the semi-automatics, by and large, are not as reliable as revolvers. Well, a lot of people still have semi-automatics and enjoy shooting semi-automatics, so this is the first thing. You know, friends, if you can't depend on a gun being reliable, because as you've heard me say before, if you need a handgun, you need it real bad, real quick at that time. You don't want to have to worry about, well, is this thing going to work or not? And so that's the first thing you need to discover. Some people go out and buy a handgun and if they think it's like some other appliance. Well, they're not. They do take more care and they take more work at learning how to properly use these things, say, than a mixer or something that someone might use in their kitchen, something like that. So what you have to do, you have to go out and shoot your gun with whatever kind of ammunition you may have and see if it works. And that's the only way. Just go out and try it. So we have, of course, a selection of ammunition here, and some of these bleed over as far as effectiveness goes. Let's talk about that in just a second. Your typical 9mm, like this Taurus PT908. Taurus has really had a good run with this gun so far. This gun has been very reliable, and let me qualify that. All semi-automatics will malfunction at some point. All of them will. Count on it. You shoot them enough, they'll all malfunction. But some are a lot better than others. This little Taurus has proved to be pretty good. In fact, the 9mm, your average bullet weight is going to run about 115 grains of weight at about 1,100 to 1,150 feet per second. All right, that's an average performance that you're going to encounter. The bullet next to it there that we saw in the picture was a .38 Super. Now then, the Super, as it is factory loaded by most companies, is going to run that same bullet that the 9mm run about 100 feet per second faster. Instead of 1,150 feet a second, it's going to run about 1,250 feet per second. The Winchester Silvertip is a pretty nice load in the .38 Super because you get mid-range .357 Magnum performance.
Friends, we hope you're enjoying our program. You notice we do all kinds of features, and I like to say, if you don't like what you see on this week's program, we'll just wait and we'll do something else next week. You will be seeing more features for the ladies, more features involving children, because these are two areas that we as shooters and Americans, we have to reach out to the kids and to the ladies, because it is so important. You know what? We need all these hunters, people that go out to the deer leases and stay out for a week at a time. You know what? We need these women. We need their vote. They need to understand what shooting and guns are about. It is of paramount importance. This is something we have to do. We've got to reach these children and explain to them that the cartoon characters are not real, and this is the guns they see in action on television. That is simply not the case. Now, you can help us here at the Shootin' Show, one, by joining our Shootin' Show Gun Club, or by, if you have a business, you can advertise with us here on the Shootin' Show. And we have an 800 number. It's 1-800-SAVE-YOU-GUN. That's 1-800-728-8486. And Dory, I think you'll testify that Al and Bobby are nice people and easy to work with.
Sure are. I just met them once last week or so, but got to talk to them today and work with them a little bit today.
But they're very good people to work with. Yes, they are.
They were a lot of fun, too. They kept me entertained this afternoon.
Well, that's true. They are people that are interested in what we're doing, and they're alive and energetic. And unfortunately, in the past, some of the gun industry types have not been. We don't know if they're alive or not. We guess they're up there, you know. But our gun club members, here's what you can do. You can write to the president/CEO of any gun company that you have in mind, or ammunition company, whatever else, and ask them if they would to please support the Shootin' Show. We need the shooting industry support, because it's very expensive doing what we do here on the program. And everyone, if you're a Shootin' Show Gun Club member and you got a renewal, please send it back in. It's $25 per year. It is very, very important. It helps us stay on the air, because our work is so important. Because we have to reach more and more shooters, more normal Americans. We have got to reach more and more women. And certainly, if we're going to have any future as gun owners and shooters, if we're going to have any future at all, we're going to have to reach children and explain to them how these firearms are safely used and how children do not pick up firearms. This has got to be done. It has to be. And we think the Shootin' Show is the best way to do this. So please, again, our 800 number, if you would like to advertise with the Shootin' Show, 1-800-728-8486, 1-800-SAVE-YOU-GUN. Now back to our program.
125 grain bullet at about 1,150 feet per second, which is similar to a new Remington mid-range 357 Magnum load. It's not a real violent load to shoot, something that can be easily controlled, but it still would have, I would think, pretty good effectiveness on a target. Now then, next to the 38 Super, we have a 40 Smith & Wesson. Now the 40 is a true 40 caliber bullet, 4/10 of an inch across in diameter, and it is probably the most popular semi-automatic pistol cartridge among new guns being purchased now, because literally you can get the lower powered 40s, and the idea of the 40 was to approximate 45 ACP performance. I said approximate because you're just never going to have the diameter that the 45 has, but it's been showing up pretty well as far as actual performance goes. All right, then we have the full-size 10 millimeter, and we have a Smith & Wesson 1006, and I'll tell you what, friends, these were really nice guns, and they're no longer in production by Smith & Wesson, but I guess just because sales didn't warrant it. But it's a big gun. It's a little bigger than a 1911. It's just a little bit bigger handgun, but it appears to be very strong. They're very reliable, and they shoot pretty well. This particular gun is a double action semi-automatic, but the 10 millimeter, a lot of people said they were going to be 41 Magnums in semi-automatics when they first came out. Well, I think some of the first loadings were pretty doggone hot, and what the manufacturers did was actually back down on the 10 millimeter loading. The FBI load was a 180 grain, I believe, bullet at about 950 feet per second. So what they did, they dropped back to approximate 45 ACP ballistics. And we're going to talk about one other thing in just a moment, but some of the 10s are still pretty darn hot. And it's a very fine caliber and load. And of course we have the 45 ACP over here, which is one of if not the best semi-automatic handgun pistol cartridge, because one, it's a lower intensity round, it's not terribly loud, but that bullet has proven itself in countless wars and things around the world and actual combat situations for, well, since the early 1900s. And of course the .45 caliber bullet was very popular in the Old West, so it is a proven size, it's a proven formula. Now then, on any of these calibers, and I got to put this in about Corbin, on any one of these pistol calibers, you get a tremendous performance increase. The Corbin 9mm makes your 9 into a light .357 Magnum. It is a serious caliber. The Corbin in the .38 Super, you have a 115 grain bullet, 115 grain size, running at 1,450 feet per second. Again, Corbin has successfully made the .38 Super into essentially a .357 Magnum, which is a very desirable power level. Same thing with the 40. Corbin has made their 40 caliber round into a quite a bit more potent round than the other manufacturers offer. Now on the 10mm, there's a couple of companies out there that make comparable ammunition to the Corbin, but certainly the Corbin functions extremely well and is very reliable as far as accuracy. That's what we've seen. Again, a very high performance cartridge. And back to the .45 ACP for ultimate performance. Well, certainly Corbin does have, and I'm not saying this just because they're a sponsor of our program, I'm saying this because it's true. The .45 caliber Corbin has given us the most consistent performance. I especially like the 230 grain Corbin .45 ACP loading. So what we get here, the 9mm, 38 Super, and 40 S&W are very similar as far when you use the very best ammunition available. It's very similar to as far as the three calibers together, as far as how they perform. Now then, we're not going to be able to find Corbin everywhere out there, and some of you are going to have some other ammunition choices just because of what you've got. The Super does have a slight advantage over the 9. The Super has a bigger advantage where hand loads are concerned, because you can run the Supers on up with heavier bullets. You just have more case capacity than the 9s have. And a lot of the shooting gamesman types have had great success with the 38 Super simply because they can run heavier bullets faster, say, than the various 9s can. Well, we get around to our 10mm here. Well, the 10 is one of the few actual selections here that you can actually hunt with. I feel like anything you can hunt with a .357 Magnum revolver, you can probably hunt with a 10mm. The 10 is going to be a little bit much for most people. If you've been shooting a 9mm handgun, the 10 is going to kick you pretty hard. You're going to definitely know the difference. It certainly kicks harder than a .45 ACP just because you have more bullet performance. Typically, if we've been shooting a Magnum revolver, it's not going to bother you. If you've been shooting a .357 Magnum, the 10 is really not going to bother you that much. And that's my feeling about actual performance of the 10mm. Of what we have available now, the 10 is equal to a good, strong, top-level .357 Magnum revolver round, and the .357 would be in a longer barrel length. These are compact guns. And that's another advantage. If the semi-automatics have an advantage, they are more compact for their size and their power containment. In the medium-powered cartridges like this, they are a more compact package, and that is a desirable characteristic for a lot of people that carry guns. Now, with a lot of concealed carry permits being given in a number of states, it's easier to conceal a semi-automatic pistol because they're flatter. You just don't have the width that you have with the revolver, and you don't have, it's not quite as bulky a situation. Well, let's run a little test here briefly, and let's see in performance. I'm not really going to recommend a specific caliber for home defense because they're all pretty good defensive rounds. Now, the 10 will by far have the greatest power capability. But as far as effectiveness, when you take the best 9mm like the Corbin and the best 40 available and the best 38 Super, they're all going to have similar performance capabilities as far as defensive guns go. Some people are going to argue with that, but all the stuff we've shot and the people we've talked to, what matters most of all, and this is, if I make no other point today, it is bullet placement on your target. Nothing, like we showed on the program here recently, a miss with a .44 Magnum does nothing, and a hit with a .22 does something. So the point of this is whatever bullet type or gun type you have, the key to being prepared defensively is to go out here and shoot your gun and find out.
Friends, we've run out of time on this week's program for this feature, and we'll come back to it on our next program. Incidentally, if you would like to advertise on the Shootin' Show, you can call us at 1-800-SAVE-YOU-GUN. That's 1-800-728-8486. Our staff will be very happy to talk to you. Well, friends, it's happened again. We've run out of time for today's program. From Kurt, the judge, myself, we want to thank everyone for being with us for today's program, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Shootin' Show.